Hello, everybody. My name is Aksungu. I'm a doctoral candidate at London Business School.
I'm delighted to share our joint work with Kamelin Ramdas in the Apply Research Challenge competition. Today's talk will be about mobile phones and their role in poverty alleviation. One of the main reasons why poverty is considered such a persistent challenge is because the poor are hard to reach. So when there is a scientific or technological advancement, it's very difficult to communicate this information to them. They're isolated from information, and they're isolated from markets. And in this background, mobile phones is a cheap and a scalable way to disseminate information to the poor and bring them into the global economy. There are numerous applications ranging from agriculture advice to vaccination camp invitation, education to financial instruments. Developing country governments and institutes like World Bank and United Nations are promoting and in fact subsidizing mobile phones in low-income markets. And today, the number of people who have access to a mobile phone in a low-income market is more than the number of people who have access to clean water or electricity. I'll show you a short video on 2019 Nobel Minds meeting where economics laureate Michael Kremer further highlights this issue.
Ms. Professor Kremer, how are you going to use your platform?
The spread of mobile phones has just created tremendous opportunities to provide information to people who need it around the world. And with big data and machine learning, we can tailor those messages to people. And I'm hoping to work with governments, and I'm working with governments and private firms to try to help them find ways to deliver information, for example,
which you always did, but you're going to do it even more.
But I'd like to ask you this question. What do you think about your own smartphone usage behavior? It is true that these devices transformed our lives. But what has been often discussed in the Western world, in the policy circles today, is these devices are tempting. There are apps that are built to hook you into their platforms to continuously use them. And we consider themselves mostly addictive. But this addictive smartphone usage, entertainment usage behavior has not been investigated in the developing country markets, and this is the goal of this research. We first try to understand how the world's poorest community is interacting with this technology, interacting with the digital world. And then we ask, can we do something? And we focused on data plans because data is the channel through which you reach out to the internet and therefore information. And we try to find ways in which to increase access to information in these markets. This is Moncurt. This is where we conducted our experiment. I spent 5 months in this community. It's fortunate to meet a lot of folks. Unfortunately, a lot of people in this community are suffering from preventable diseases like tuberculosis and malnutrition, but they're still sacrificing from their essential food and health needs and investing in hefty data plans, smartphone usage. And this qualitative observation motivated us to do a systematic understanding of this smartphone usage behavior in these communities through an experiment. This image on the left is Google Maps in Moncurt, and on the right you see Central Park in New York. As you can see here, Moncurt is about half of the size of Central Park, but there are 700,000 people living in this community. It has the lowest human development index in the entire Mumbai. It builds right next to a dumping ground. It's a highly underprivileged, highly densely packed area. We did an experiment with about 930 individuals, where a third were daily wage workers and another 15% were unemployed, meaning for half of the sample, next day's income is uncertain. We started by asking a very simple question. How frequently do you use your mobile phone for various purposes? And strikingly, what we see is that entertainment usage is very high, very close to communication. Over 75% of the people were saying they frequently or more using their phones for entertainment. But when it comes down to information, and remember, this is the reason why governments subsidize these devices, this number goes down to 20%. To get a more precise understanding of smartphone usage, we build an app for this experiment. We install our application into participant's smartphone and track their usage, second by second, app level usage behavior throughout our experiments. And it turns out that they spend about 4.5 hours in their smartphones. By the time we did this experiment, this number was 3 hours in the United States and 2.5 hours in South Korea. So this number is big. And also when you look at the types of app that these people are using, you see that more than 50% of the time spent on entertainment-related apps, depicted here by the red of tones of color, colors of red. But when it comes down to a category like news and information, there's virtually no usage. So we conducted this experiment where we provided people with two forms of data plans. One is a plan that we all use. You get the data at the beginning of the month, which you need to manage through the rest. And the other group received proportionally smaller daily caps. So to make it more precise, in one arm, we provided 14 gigabytes for a 28-day period. And we provided 3 of these cycles, so it's a 12-week experiment. And in the other arm, through our smartphone application, we put half a gigabyte day of daily usage quotas. Before we did the randomization, we conducted a survey to understand the characteristics of this population. We did an online survey where we randomized the day in which we conducted the survey to capture people at different stages of the experiment of a data plan cycle. And as the motivation is to provide information, we try to mimic what governments do. We send information about health. We use WhatsApp as a medium. These messages include useful information and topics like nutrition or dental hygiene, but they're also an invitation to an in-person health camp that we conducted in the community. In here, we divided sample as, capped plan and standard plan arm as yellow and green. And then we divided the data plan cycle into 2 halves, first 2 weeks and last 2 weeks, in order to capture earlier in the plan when people are flush with data, or later in the plan where the data might run short. And here is the punchline of our paper. When there are no data caps, people are binge using entertainment, binge using social media, binge using WhatsApp, YouTube. And later in the plan, they face a significant reduction in their data usage, as you can see here on these apps. So what we argue here is that this entertainment-related binge usage leads to a data shortage period later in the data plan cycle. As you can see here, particularly in the communication apps, there's a significantly less usage when you receive the caps later in the plan, when you don't receive the caps later in the plan. And what we argue here is that this is the part where we should be concerned about. This is the part where they might be offline again, where they might be isolated from information on markets again. And we validated this claim with WhatsApp. We choose WhatsApp because WhatsApp has this nice feature called message read receipt, where you can go to your WhatsApp chat page and see if someone read the message that you sent, and if so, when they have accessed this message. And what we find is, earlier in the plan, both arms, cap plan and the standard plan arm, are equally likely to access these messages. But later in the plan, in the standard plan arm, access to these messages gets significantly reduced. In contrast, it remained rather stable in the capped plan arm. Among those who did access these messages, those who are in the standard plan arm were taking more time to reach out to these messages, access and open up and read these messages later in their data plan. And perhaps the most important result of this paper is we see a significant increase in the health camp attendance. This is an image of a health camp that we have conducted. So I'd like to repeat myself here. Through manipulating the type of data plans people receive, we were able to increase the attendance to a health camp by 27%, because people were more likely to open up their messages on WhatsApp, be able to access and get informed about these health camps, and therefore be more likely to attend these events. We also checked whether there was other effects like sleep, happiness, and temptation towards mobile data, and we did not see any negative or positive effect of these camps. So what should we do? Should we go tell governments? Should we try to convince businesses to push these plans? There are two important factors. One is whether this is a profitable business model for a telecom provider. It turns out as these plans are capped, people end up spending less data. So as far as the telecom provider is concerned, these are cost-saving strategies. So what it boils down is whether people would want to prefer these plans. And to understand this, we ask this question at the beginning of the experiment. Here's a capped plan, here's a standard plan, it's the same price, same payment scheme. which one would you pick? And we see that 75% of the people are preferring these capped plans. And in fact, when we reduced the monthly plan, the standard plan price, they were still willing to pay an extra premium to impose these caps into their data plans. And this is anecdotally what we heard over and over again from these people. I would prefer these caps because I wake up happy in the morning knowing I have internet. This continuous internet connectivity is what makes these plans more attractive for these people. And when we ask them, those who have lack of self-control and a high degree of FOMO, fear of missing out, are the ones who are preferring these plans. In the rest of the video presentation, I'll show you a video where we conducted an interview with industry experts and those who use these plans. And we asked them what did they think about these plans. And here is what they told us.
एक्सपेरिमेंट से पहले मैंने मंथली प्लान लिया था, तो उसके डेटा एक साथ आ रहा था। एक साथ आने से पूरे महीना नहीं चलता था, 10 दिन 15 दिन में खत्म हो गया डेटा। तो उससे क्या था, मुझे पता नहीं चलता था कि मेरा डेटा कहाँ खत्म हो रहा है, किधर तो क्या हुआ।
डेटा प्लान जो चल रहा था तो लोगों का कंप्लेन नहीं आता था कि हमारा डेटा खत्म हो गया, यूट्यूब नहीं चल रहा था। फिर हमें उनको डेली का प्लान दिया, तो उससे लोग और खुश हो गए, कस्टमर भी बढ़ने लगे।
If you are putting the two bills together, we'd rather give the half GB plan as a company. And I'll tell you why, for many reasons. Because we tend to see that the 14 GB guy also tends to consume more. Suppose one day you're too busy and you don't use the data, there's no carry forward of that half GB. That's gone. It's whistled in the air, right? Whereas in the 14 GB, it's always there. You can binge in the weekend. There's this huge fear of missing out, which these people have. And for that, they want to be constantly connected. And that's very key. They can't afford for their phones to be switched off, because then that disconnects them from their groups, that disconnects them from their friends. They don't know what's happening with their friends. They don't know what's happening in their society. They don't know what's happening in the world. This is their way of connecting to everybody.
It's very difficult to really be part of the global economy if you don't have access to data and you're not connected anymore. So that sort of building that digital confidence and digital access for the last billion, as we call it, is absolutely critical. The caps idea that you raised in this piece of work is a very interesting one from the perspective of creating that safety and that sort of trust relationship with your provider, because then you no longer have the fear that if I leave data on, my phone is just going to start consuming my balance in the background as these apps keep running, and I'll be out of pocket for the rest of the month.
In the markets covered by Batelco, as well as the wider region, even customers with a relatively modest income are nowadays prioritizing having a smartphone to stay in touch with family and friends, as well as stay informed about news and events. For relatively low-income mobile customers, a traditional monthly data bundle in some cases might run out and the customer is not able to afford replenishing the data bundle. Therefore, the daily capped product is giving a smaller volume of data every day, which is spreading out the usage over an entire month and allowing the customer every day to be able to use his or her smartphone.